And I'm fucking livid that we are stuck in the timeline where Alex Jones is right. Kind of worse.
Oh no! Oh, okay, no.
Why aren't the Amish afraid of COVID? Because they don't have TVs.
As I said, democracy is a system that reinforces authoritarian ideals.
I hope I don't get canceled. Talk to Steve.
Being a victim of a tragedy doesn't make you an expert in public policy.
Well, I mean, AOC is a drama queen and she's full of shit.
Remember, they lost the Afghan war 10 years ago.
You brought a freaking guillotine.
They said, you don't get to tell us no, we're the state health department, and I said, hell no.
It wasn't making Christianity better, it was making rock worse.
What the fuck do you have on your face, Olivia?
You want to make the world a better place? Have some babies and raise them to not be stupid.
I remember thinking, man, governments are not going to like this shit.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in. Review and React number 5. I know we just did number 4 yesterday. For those of you who tuned in, thank you so much. That was a long stream, a long night. 2.5 hours of Karen Ann versus the LNC. But Pink's appeal happened and we had to cover it. So thanks again for tuning into that. If you haven't checked it out, card up on the screen. Make sure you do go check it out. It was very, very interesting. Total LP inside baseball stuff. Extraordinarily frustrating. But if you like to follow the LNC and you care about the future of the Libertarian Party, it's definitely worth checking out because it's worth taking names and remembering who needs to go in Reno. Then we're back today, and I kind of want to cover it again because we didn't do commentary yesterday. I know we love to do commentary here. Yesterday we only did chat commentary and type commentary. We didn't do any voice or video commentary. And that's because the stream was so long, we didn't want to bog it down. We didn't want to talk over what was happening. We didn't want to detract from the appeal that was happening. Check out DL Cummins gave a absolutely incredible opening statement on behalf of Karen Ann, just absolutely shredding the LNC. So go check that out in the video. There's a separate video uploaded, just cut out DL Cummings' opening remarks, and they were absolutely fantastic. But what we want to react to isn't DL being great, isn't Karen Ann shredding the points of the LNC. It's the total incompetence of the LNC in their presentation and their remarks and how they were going to handle this appeal. So, for reference, how this was set up, the Judicial Committee hearing the appeal of Karen Ann versus the LNC, chaired by Dr. Mary Ruwart, one of the most astounding figures in the liberty movement. She has done so much work for libertarianism and human freedom. She's written some phenomenal books, and she's just one of the most principled people I've ever met. She was elected chair of the Judicial Committee at the 2020 convention. In my memory, as long as I've been part of the Libertarian Party, this is the first time an appeal to the Judicial Committee has been heard. This is the first time something has been appealed to the Judicial Committee. So I didn't know what the process was. I was on the board of directors for 2 terms. I was on the LNC for 2 terms. I don't even know what the process for the Judicial Committee hearing is. But it turns out the way they were going to do it was they were allowing for 30 minutes of opening remarks from each side, followed by question and answer from members of the Judicial Committee to the appellant and to the LNC, followed by rebuttals and a certain amount of time for rebuttals to anything said by the other side. Karen Ann, in probably the smartest move she had made, chose not to give her own opening statement. And that's not a knock against Karen Ann. She's a wonderful, passionate woman, and I love what she's done for the liberty movement. I love what she's done for the Libertarian Party. But DL Cummings just showed up ready to rock and gave an incredible opening statement, just eviscerating the bill of particulars and the charges against Karen Ann. What we want to cover, though, is how unprepared the LNC was to go through with this process. A process they agreed to and were aware of ahead of time. 30 minutes for opening statements. And Whitney Bilyeu, the chair of the LNC, deferred to Chris Lucchini to give those opening statements on behalf of the LNC. And this is what we got.
Yes.
Okay, good. The cause that led to the Secretary's suspension has been previously stated, a long and persistent continuing pattern of behavior which is detrimental to the party, its operation, its purpose. As has been noted, the active suspension supported by 2/3 of the LNC did not result in more professional behavior by Ms. Harlos, but rather an escalation of the personal attacks on LNC members in lengthy monetized videos.
So right here, the big thing that sticks out to me is like, it's not her conduct on the LNC they're really worried about. It's not the performance of her job duties. It's not how she carries out her job or what she does. It's her conduct on social media and her perceived disagreements with other members of the LNC. And that is what they really want to hammer down on. And Chris Lucchini hits the nail on the head here when he says it. He says it was about the monetization of the videos. It was about the lengthy monetized videos that Karen Ann put out on her YouTube channel. I'm sorry. Some people make a living streaming on the internet. Karen Ann makes a living streaming on the internet and providing commentary, and people value it. That's why she's able to generate income doing it, is because people value what she has to say. And it's astounding that we see libertarians attempting to criminalize making money. Libertarians against capitalism. Never thought I'd see it. I thought we got rid of the Socialist Caucus when Chairman Meow went the wayside. But what are you going to do?
Ms. Harlos, as an individual, has every right to engage in this toxic behavior. However, it should be...
You're damn right she has every right to engage in this toxic behavior, because it's only toxic if you're offended by it. And if the shoe fucking fits, if she's calling out corrupt actors and the shoe fucking fits and you're offended by it, then guess what? You're a corrupt actor.
Clearly, these actions are counterproductive to the individuals working well with colleagues on the LNC board.
I don't need to work well with colleagues on the LNC board. I don't need Karen Ann to work well with colleagues on the LNC board. The crux of the matter here is Karen Ann ran on a platform of being a goddamn whistleblower. Karen Ann ran on a platform of not making friends on the LNC, on making sure that everything was done above board and transparent and that the membership was informed. So if you can't work well with someone who ran on a platform of exposing your corruption, I'm sorry, you're just a corrupt piece of shit.
It's been asserted that there wasn't sufficient cause. The bylaws simply state for cause without further elaboration. In interpreting the bylaws, as in all matters, the acts of the delegates at convention should be presumed to be willful and not accidental. This provision, when passed, was deliberately non-specific. Therefore, it was the intent of the delegates to leave the definition of cause to the LNC. If the LNC had not stated a cause of action, then the JC would be correct in overturning the action of the LNC in this matter. A highly detailed bill of particulars was presented with ample time to review.
Let's talk about that. The bill of particulars. Karen Ann did do a video going over the bill of particulars. You guys should go check it out on her channel at Karen Ann at the Pink Flame of Liberty. Definitely go check out the Pink Flame of Liberty. She has done a phenomenal series breaking down the bill of particulars, the corruption, the malfeasance, everything from Joe Bishop Henchman's corruption in trying to hand over the New Hampshire party to bad actors, to through his resignation, through her suspension, and how this has been ongoing for a long time. Me and Karen Ann did a video a while back about how Richard Longstretch, ABH, Elizabeth Van Horn, and others had been planning to really oust her since before the term even started, before the convention, before elections even happened. Richard Longstretch had originally intended to run against her for secretary because he was so upset with her.
Yes, there's 16 hours of video. There were many, many days that video could have been reviewed. If the Judicial Committee overrides the will of the LNC based on a lack of sufficient cause, that implies that the JC has determined that its opinion of cause is superior to that of the LNC, a power not granted to the JC by the bylaws.
The JC is granted the power in the bylaws to overturn any decision of the LNC. If the JC determines that the LNC's decision of what constituted cause was insufficient, they have that fucking power because this was appealed to them. And in fact, this was an implicit appeal. It didn't need signatures from membership. This was an appeal that was a guaranteed right to an officer of the party who was removed by the LNC. She had an immediate and automatic right to appeal to the JC. That is spelled out in the bylaws. It is clear as day in the bylaws. And the bylaws give the JC the authority to overturn any decision or action by the LNC that's sufficiently appealed to them. So yes, they do have that power, Cristocini. They absolutely do. And they were elected willfully by the delegates to exercise that power.
Short, colloquially, the JCs did not legislate from the bench. The JC's sole purview, in my opinion, the opinion of the chair and Attorney Hall, is to judge adherence to proper procedure. Proper procedure has been followed.
In your opinion, proper procedure has been followed. That's what the LNC, that's what the JC is here to judge, whether or not the LNC followed proper procedure, whether or not having sufficient cause is part of that proper procedure. That is what we are here to judge. That is what they are going over. That is what they are reviewing. That is the whole purpose of this appeal, Cristocini. And it is your opinion, it is Whitney's opinion, and it is Oliver Hall's opinion. Oliver Hall, who's on the payroll of the party, who is an employee of the chair, who answers to the chair, and his whole job is to justify her opinions. And he's a lawyer, and he's one of the best ballot access attorneys in the country. I have used his help. I know plenty of people who have used his help when fighting to get on the ballot and fighting the state, and he's been phenomenal at that. But this wouldn't be the first time that his advice and interpretation of the bylaws was found to be incorrect. He's a lawyer, not a parliamentarian. We have parliamentarians. Later on, if you do go back and watch the full JC appeal, there are two parliamentarians. Karen Ann brings a registered parliamentarian to argue on her behalf, and the LNC brings Richard Brown, the retained parliamentarian of the Libertarian National Party, to argue on their behalf, and they disagree. Two professionally registered parliamentarians who do this for a living disagree on the interpretation of Robert's Rules of Order. So this is not clear-cut, by and straightforward. That is why we have an appeals process. That's why we have a secondary body that's a non-political body that is reviewing and overseeing your decisions. Your opinion be damned. That's the power they have.
This is not a legal proceeding. Ms. Harlow has no employment contract. She has no property right to the position of Secretary of the Party. Injecting complexity.
You're right. She has no. She's not an employee. She has no legal right to the position. She has no property right to the position. However, the delegates who voted on the first ballot with a majority vote to elect her, to re-elect her to that position, those are the members of the party. That is the membership of the party. And a majority of them on the first ballot said they wanted Karen Ann in that position. And they have a right. They have a right to have their will respected. As Nick Sarwark once said in his most famous last words, the Libertarian Party belongs to the people who show up. And here's the problem. The people showed up, and the people chose Karen Ann Harlow to be their secretary. And you, Chris Lucchini, and Whitney Bilyeu, and Aaron Adams, and Laura Ebke, and Valerie Sarwark chose to overrule the will of the delegates. And that's bullshit. Because you didn't have a fucking reason. And your opinion is that you don't need a valid reason. And your opinion is that the Judicial Committee, the body willfully elected by the delegates to oversee and hear appeals to the decisions and actions of your body, doesn't matter. Fuck you,
Complexity into a simple process for suspension detailed in the bylaws is simply making stuff up. So that concludes my prepared remarks. I will make one remark in rebuttal. Ms. Harlow's had many months to form a motion and propose one on action on COVID and chose not to do so. Instead, she attacked others.
Right here, Chris Lucchini. So, one thing I want to highlight here. 27 minutes, 26 seconds on the 30-minute timer. He used 2.5 minutes of his 30 minutes for opening statements. They were given 30 minutes to prepare opening statements detailing their case against each other. He was given 30 minutes to defend his case, to defend the LNC's case against Karen Ann Harlow. He used 2 minutes and 34 seconds. 2 minutes and 34 seconds of it for his prepared statement. What kind of bullshit is that? Again, go back. Check out DL Cummings' epic speech, his breakdown of the bill of particulars, he came prepared. Karen Ann came prepared. This asshole didn't come prepared. This asshole came to this fucking hearing under the expectation and understanding that his opinion was valid, that he believed his opinion, that the JC didn't have the right to overrule their decisions, that the JC didn't have the power or the authority to overrule their decisions, actually fucking mattered, and that is complete and utter bullshit.
And that is the kind of a toxicity and gaslighting that we all experience. That concludes my remarks. Thank you.
One, gaslighting isn't real. Chris Lucchini made it up because he's crazy. But moving on, that concludes his remarks. Concludes his remarks. 27 minutes, 15 seconds. 27 minutes, 15 seconds for his prepared remarks and off-the-cuff rebuttal. 2 minutes, 45 seconds. That's all he spoke in his opening statements. He was given a half hour. He was given 30 minutes to make his case. And he used 2 minutes and 45 seconds to say that he didn't believe a case needed to be made because he believes the Judicial Committee doesn't have the power or authority to overturn the decision of the LNC. Well, guess what, Chris Lucchini? They fucking do. They absolutely fucking do. It is mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing that you could think they don't. And that kind of thing just really, really fucking grinds my gears. And leaving the Libertarian National Committee was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. How I got there, how I got to that position, that's a much longer story of... Actually, no, it's actually a really relevant story. It's a really valid and relevant story, how I ended up on the Libertarian National Committee. In early 2017, Larry Sharp resigned from the LNC. And part of the reason Larry Sharp resigned from the LNC was because Arvin Vohra had made some pretty dramatic and radical mean tweets. At the time, Arvin was the vice chair of the party. In hindsight, I look back on these things and I don't actually disagree with anything Arvin said. I actually don't even disagree with his approach and his tactics. I've evolved in my understanding of these things, and I've come to kind of embrace the shock value tactic of fighting the culture war with rabid argumentation rather than praying and hoping that you can be nice enough that people will give you a chance. It's fucking stupid. People aren't going to give you a chance. We live in the most politically divided time in history. People are at each other's throats over minor disagreements, and disagreements on the definitions of terms have people at each other's throats. But Larry Sharp resigned, and Patrick McKnight, the Region 8 representative, announced that he was going to resign as well as soon as a replacement was chosen for him and Larry. Larry was the alternate for Region 8. And if you're not familiar, Region 8 is the New England states: Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Hampshire. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. The Northeast. That's Region 8. And I put my name in the hat. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to run to replace Larry Sharp and be the alternate on the LNC. I think it's time for me to get involved. I have some things I want to say and get involved here. Other people, Tony DiResio from New York, Alex Merced from New York had also run, along with a few other people. And in the end, I ended up winning. I did not expect to win. I know I did reach out to Larry Sharp and tell him I was interested in running, and he supported me. I reached out to Karen Ann and told her I was considering running, and she supported me and encouraged me to do it. If it weren't for Larry Sharp and Karen Ann, I wouldn't have done it. And they convinced me to run for the LNC, and I ended up winning. Alex Merced won the alternate spot, and for a term, I served with Alex Merced as my alternate, and we get along wonderfully. Alex is an amazing guy. He's really super easy to work with, and we had a great dynamic back and forth. And then the next term, Alex was elected vice chair of the party. I supported and endorsed Alex for vice chair of the party. He was a phenomenal vice chair. And Jeff Lyons was my alternate for a while until Jeff resigned to take a job with Young Americans for Liberty, and Pat Ford replaced him. The three alternates I worked with as an LNC rep, Alex Merced, Jeff Lyons, Pat Ford, were three of the most principled and straightforward people I've ever worked with, and some of the easiest working arrangements I've ever had. And I would never, ever disparage any of them for anything. And they've only done their best for the party and the movement in general. And I love them to death. Karen Ann, I got along great with at first. We had a good relationship, a great working relationship. If many of you remember, towards the end of my second term on the LNC, leading up to the 2020 convention, actually things got really heated with me and Karen Ann. Things got really heated. We had some bitter disagreements, and we had some bitter fighting where we disagreed on things and we argued on things, and it put a strain on our relationship and our friendship. And in hindsight, it's the stress of the LNC, and it's the stress of the job, and it's the fruitlessness of what we were trying to do. I wanted to help turn the Libertarian Party into an activist organization again, and I was seeing myself fail in that position because I couldn't get buy-in from other members. But the very first vote I took as an LNC member was on the suspension of Arvin Vora as vice chair of the party for his tweets. And I'm really conflicted looking back on that, because I did vote to suspend Arvin Vora. So did Karen Ann. I voted to suspend him. When the suspension motion failed, I voted to censure him. And in hindsight, while I agree with his messaging, I agree with what he had to say, I do think he was right, and I think the party was wrong to try and remove him and censure him. I was a regional representative. I was there to represent a very specific core constituency, the state chairs of the New England and Northeast states, and they wanted Arvin gone. So I don't regret my vote to suspend him, because it was a vote that was representative of the interests of my region. I regret the fact that it had to come to that, and it kind of set a precedent for what's going on. It set a precedent that the LNC could try and suspend somebody for their personal social media post outside of their scope of their position in the party. And that precedent has been expounded upon to say the LNC can try and suspend somebody for monetizing social media for the kind of work they do, because this is work. That is work. Streaming and making content and content delivery, that is work. And it's paying work. And now we're in the business of telling libertarians what type of work is acceptable? I'm sorry, but if you have a problem with Karen Ann's show, start your own fucking show and compete. It's not that goddamn hard. I mean, it is really fucking hard. But she's doing it, why can't you? Or are you just mad that she's pulled it off and she's successful? That she's built a base of support beyond what yours is? Are you just mad, Chris Lucchini and Whitney Billiou and Laura Ebke and Valerie Sarwark and Aaron Adams and John Phillips and Richard Longstreth, the Cumrino? You know you won't be on the LNC anymore. You're no longer the big fish in this little pond. I don't know about you, but that kind of excites me. Till next time, be free. Thanks again for tuning in and joining us tonight. Make sure you hit that like button and leave a comment below to let us know your thoughts. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that big red subscribe button on YouTube and turn on notifications to get alerted every time we go live. If you enjoyed this content, you can join our production team on Patreon by following the link in the description. And don't forget to follow on social media and join our community Discord channel by following the links in the description as well. The best part of all of this is the community that we're building and growing. So go ahead and join us. And thanks once again to our awesome sponsors and patrons for making all of this possible. And if you can't catch the show live, you can always catch it the next day on YouTube, Odyssey, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcasts. So until next time, everybody, be free.